Hello, and welcome to A Peace in Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Gorley, and this is the podcast where you get to listen to an audiobook for free, episode by episode, chapter by chapter, and then afterwards you get some amazing commentary by the author, who in this case would be me, but hopefully you still find some of the thoughts about writing and characters and anecdotes interesting, at least that's what I'm hoping for, and you will enjoy it. And if you're not into all the commentary and stuff, you can kind of just skip to the next episode and listen to the next chapter of the book. So in today's episode, we actually are back to school, and we are in kind of boarding class again, kind of common theme. Apparently it's just like my thoughts as a person that I was always bored in high school. Probably not completely true, but maybe sometimes often. But she's at school, and then we start to kind of have some issues with the bus. All right, Jen kind of receives, I don't want to say she was bullied, but she was definitely picked on in the chapter, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more. And then we have some kind of issues with that, how it relates to her family, and then also maybe some friendships are starting to drift. So we will see. I know actually the end of last episode, I said that this episode was going to be where she tried out for the school play, but that is actually not accurate. I kind of forgot what chapter was next, and so we got a couple chapters before she tries out for the school play. But in this chapter, we will see they actually announced the school play. But without further ado, let us read chapter 6. Attention all Hemlock Ridge High School students. There will be a mandatory tryout next Tuesday after school for all who are interested in being part of the fall play called Identities. Please see the new theater teacher, Miss Collins, for any additional details. Can you believe they are finally doing play tryouts? Jasmine said, interrupting the remaining end of the day announcements. Yeah, they were supposed to be like 2 weeks ago, Jen answered in a hushed tone. Mr. Freeman, looking over, said, Girls, how many times do I have to tell you no talking during announcements? Jeez, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I must have said it 200 times this year, and we're only in the 4th week of school. Always without a doubt, there has to be someone talking. Sorry, Jen said quietly. I'm sorry, Mrs. Freeman. Mr. Freeman? Jasmine replied with a smile. It's fine. I just get pretty sick of talking about it. Mr. Freeman answered in a less upset tone. Have you lost weight, Mr. Freeman? You look thinner than you did the first week of school. Jasmine added again with her brilliant smile. Well, yes, I have been working out. I could be a little thinner than I was a few weeks ago. I did get this new shirt, responded Mr. Freeman, flattered that someone noticed that the not-so-flattering, tighter than it should be, black athletic cut polo. Looks nice, Mr. Freeman, Jasmine said in a voice that oozed flattery. The class began talking as well, taking note that Mr. Freeman was no longer paying attention to the announcements himself, and it was talking about his own diet and exercise plan. Jasmine whispered to Jen while still looking at Mr. Freeman and smiling and nodding her head. I learned from my older brothers that if you can get a teacher talking about themselves, they usually become so distracted that they'll waste huge portions of class. I usually only try to get them talking during boring lectures, but I really didn't want to listen to stupid Friday afternoon announcements with only 10 minutes left. That's so funny, Jen was with a laugh. Don't the teachers ever catch on? No, not usually. Most just like talking about themselves so much they don't even notice. The only problem comes when the teacher talking about themselves becomes more boring than the subject you're trying to avoid learning. So there's definitely risk involved. That's so funny. Another slender 9th grade boy began asking Mr. Freeman some questions about working out, releasing Jasmine from her fake it listening act. So are you going to the freshman football game on Saturday? You know my boyfriend Sean is playing, right? Varsity plays on Fridays and freshman on Saturday. You should come. Well, I would, but I got this thing at my church. I really don't want to go, but my mom was going to make me. Oh, really? Well, that's okay. But you really should come sometime. Nobody goes to the freshman games on Saturday. The freshman team is actually pretty good, too. Our varsity team sucks. They only won like 2 games last year. Yeah, I heard that. At least our school soccer team is good, right? Yeah, our soccer team was like third in state last year, and our football team was like third worst or something. And man, some of those soccer boys are cute too. If Sean and I ever break up, that'll be the first thing I do, join the soccer team. Don't they have a girls team? Yeah, but I joined the boys team. All those long practices, bus trips, and group showers. Jasmine, Jen said with a shocked laugh. What? Just saying, said with her smile. The bell rang, and Jen ran to her locker to grab her biology book before going out to the bus. The bus driver did not mess around when it come to punctuality. Betty had the bus ready to move the second it was time to leave. Students learned very quickly they were either on time or left behind. Students who had ridden with Betty before knew this and took it seriously, while new students often were left behind a couple times before they realized Betty's strict adherence to the school bus schedule. At the end of the day, Jen always felt like she was going to get run over or hit. Sometimes she felt like she was in a giant football game and everyone was trying to knock her over. Jen remembered what her cousin Mario from Michigan once told her. Mario was obsessed with football. He was actually a big Cleveland Browns fan despite being from Michigan. Mario believed that being a Cleveland Browns fan made him a better person because it forced him to deal with defeat and failed expectations. She remembered specifically what Mario once said about the crowded hallways in school. Sometimes when I'm in a rush in the hallway, I pretend like I'm a running back looking for my opening and that people in front of me are my lead blockers. And I'm looking for that one crease so I can take it to the house. Jen wasn't sure about all that, mostly because she wasn't completely sure what that meant. But she felt that she got hit enough in the hallway that she could be in a football game. At least in a real football game, you have helmets and pads and you know you're going to get hit. The crowded halls Jen usually avoided had delayed her just enough to only barely get to the bus before it left. As Jen looked at her watch, her pace quickened. 1 minute until Betty took off. Jen was now in sight of the bus and could see Betty glance at her watch, reach for the door level, and Jen yelled to her, "Wait!" Betty saw Jen and shook her head. She grumpily said, "Come on, I'm leaving." Jen skipped a step, hopped onto the bus, and searched for an empty seat. Arriving to the bus later than expected, Jen found a selection of seats to be wanting. All of Jen's usual seats in the front were occupied, leaving only a few seats towards the back. Jen dropped her belongings into the frontmost of the back seats, leaving only one empty seat between her and the normal bus ruffians. The bus ruffians, the term Morgan gave for the weird, think-they're-cool kids who sit in the back of the bus. The name was an homage to the odd term Lena liked to use for anyone she considered unruly. As Jen slouched back against the green vinyl seat, one of the boys took notice that Jen was actually sitting toward the back of the bus. "Hey, Jen, I'm glad you finally came and sat by us." Jen answered with a nod of the head to the boy and forced a half chuckle. "She thinks she's too cool to sit with us," said one of the ruffians. "Yeah, but I'm not sure why she thinks she's so cool. Her mom is like retarded or something," added an overweight kid named Frankie in a loud, mocking tone. "She's not retarded," Jen answered, turning toward the back of the bus and almost shouting. Immediately, Jen realized that she had spoken to them and that they would now only bother her more. Frustrated that she didn't think and just reacted, Jen faced forward, closed her eyes for a moment, and shook her head, knowing that she shouldn't have said anything at all. "Whoa, look who finally spoke up," said a kid named Jake. "She's probably just upset because she's retarded too. You know, it's genetic," added Chance, trying to impress his friends. "Nah, she gets like straight A's or something, so she's probably adopted." "Talk about bad luck getting adopted by a retarded woman." At this, Jen violently grabbed her belongings and strode up the center aisle to a recently vacated seat, 2 rows up, with a tear dripping from her eye. Betty glanced in her mirror and saw Jen move out of her seat and yelled, "Sit down! There is no moving on the bus." Jen's single tear dripped down her face was spotted by Ronnie sitting a couple seats up and across. "What happened, Jen? Are you okay?" Ronnie asked from across the bus, looking very concerned to see his usually strong sister upset. "I'm fine." "Jen, what happened?" "I'm fine. Leave me alone." Ronnie looked toward the back of the bus, hearing the The ruffians explode with laughter. "Jen, what happened?" said a lower tone. "I'm fine. Leave me alone," Jen yelled in a tone that drew the attention of the passengers and the 5 nearest seats. Jen stared out the window, watching more houses and trees go by, waiting for the final moments when she could leave this awful ride home. Jen knew that the boys in the back of the bus were jerks, a group that, despite being either overweight, homely-looking, or unintelligent, felt their duty to try to make fun of others as much as they had most likely been ridiculed themselves. Jen knew that, but had bigger fear that these boys that had rode the bus with Jen for years, knew her family and its dysfunctions, would tell other people about her family. How long would it be before other high school classmates learned of her mom? Jen didn't want to think about it, but sometimes the things that Jen wanted to think about the least were the things that she thought about the most. Part of Jen felt bad that she was embarrassed at her family at all. Her mom had problems, so what? Lots of families have problems, but the reality was that her mom constantly did do embarrassing things. Jen's mind continued to wander. Next time I have to sit in the back, I'm going to walk home even if it's a blizzard outside. At least I don't have to have class with any of these idiots. I don't need my actual intelligent classmates teasing me. I just want to go spend time with Morgan. She makes everything better. Have some nice Morgan time and not think about the obnoxious people. Seriously, Morgan would punch these kids in the face. She does not play. She would cuss them out until they cried and only stop to throw some more punches. The mental visualization of Morgan punching and cussing out the boys in the back of the bus made Jen feel much better, and she even cracked a smile. The bus pulled up to the Morris residence, and Jen practically sprinted off the bus, but still heard some muffled laughs and the word retard coming from the back of the bus. Ronnie followed Jen, walking as quickly as he could until a jog was necessary to catch up. "Jen, they were calling Mom retarded, weren't they?" he said, trying to catch his breath. "Yeah, they were. Don't worry about it. They're just a bunch of idiots. The kids at my school used to say stuff like that until Miss Canet found out and said it was bullying, and the kids got in really big trouble. Nobody really says anything anymore." "That's good that they stopped." Jen's sentence trailed off as her and Ronnie froze when they finally saw Lena kneeling on the other side of the car, holding some stray weeds while sporting her gardening apparel. "My babies, how are you?" "That's good that they stopped what?" Lena asked, getting up from her knees so she could hug her children. Jen and Ronnie looked surprised, and Jen quickly but suspiciously finished her sentence. That's good that they don't watch those bad movies anymore." Ronnie gave her a look like, "Really? Bad movies?" "Yeah, it's good," he responded, not sounding very convinced. "Your friends aren't watching bad movies again, are they?" Lena asked, sounding very concerned, while wrapping her arms around Ronnie. "It's not Robbie Sutton again, is it?" "No, Mom. Jen's just talking about some other friends." "Okay, but you know I don't want you hanging out with kids that are watching bad movies." I know, Mom." "How was school, Jen?" Lena asked, now moving over to hug her. "Good, Mom. How are your grades?" "Good," Jen said through a hug that was more intense than she expected. "You're in high school now, and it gets a lot harder. You have to really study. Are you studying enough, Jen?" "Yes, Mom. I'm studying enough," Jen said as she finally broke free of the hug. "Okay, well, you need to study, Jen. High school is much harder than grade school. You really have to study." "Yeah, I got it, Mom. Do you know where the phone is? I need to call Morgan." "Are you sure you're spending enough time studying instead?" "Mom, geez, how many times did I tell you? I'm fine. I'm all studied up. I said that like 4 times. "I'm sorry, Jen. I worry sometimes. I just had a hard time in high school. I had to study much more than you do, but I know I have a harder time with things than you do." Jen started to feel bad for her mom for being so impatient with her mom. "No, it's okay, Mom. I'm fine. I only have a few classes with tests coming up, and I have A's and B's in all my classes, and I think the B's are pretty close to being A's too. I just have to see how I did in the last few homework assignments. So I'm fine, Mom." "I'm so proud of you, Jenny," Lena said with a giggle. "Thanks, Mom. Do you know where the phone is? I just wanted to call Morgan real quick. She was in history class today." "I don't know, Jenny. I think it might be on the kitchen table." Looking for the phone, annoyed Jen again. Her family was the only family she knew that even had a landline. When she finally found the white cordless phone, Jen called Morgan, but she was on the phone with Zoe Davidson, another freshman who had just transferred in from Florida. Morgan explained that her and Zoe were going to the football game and that she was welcome to come with them if she wanted. Jen was a little disappointed that Morgan wasn't free to spend BFF time with her. Jen knew Lena wouldn't have the $8 it took for students to go to the football game, and she had spent all her money on new school clothes. She had hoped that Morgan would offer to pay for her, like she had done many other times. But Morgan made no such offer, and Jen felt bad bringing it up. Her heart sank. Jen tried her best to not sound too upset as she hung up quickly, but was unsure if her attempt to sound chill actually worked. Jen sat there staring at the wall for a moment. It was only one night, but this was supposed to be her night to help rejuvenate her spirits. But instead, it turned to loneliness and boredom. Jen spent the rest of the nights watching reruns of the Vampire Diaries and Arrow, using her neighbor's Wi-Fi to check social media, to find what seemed like a record number of selfies from other freshmen having a good time at the football game. Jen went to sleep wondering what she would have looked like tagged in those photos. And that is chapter 6. All right, so we're kind of getting into a couple different things here in this chapter. Obviously, we have things going on with school, and then obviously the big thing would be the bullying at school or on the bus, or at least them doesn't exactly fit the description of bullying. So it's usually like a recurring thing. This is sort of like a one-off a little bit. She kind of avoids the people in the back of the bus, and they kind of don't mess with her for the most part. But here we were today, anyways, with that. So yeah, so it kind of hints a little bit about Jen's mom, and it's been a little bit not really forthright with what's. I've had that like kind of feedback from people like I kind of want to know what's going on with like her mom, like why is her mom like this or whatever. And the book does eventually kind of explain like the whole deal with her mom. It's sort of a little bit of a mystery, so to speak. Kind of wait till like later in the book to kind of talk about why her mom's like kind of different. But she kind of goes into things that she does a lot of embarrassing things and different like that. And she is kind of embarrassed with her mom. And that's part of one of the issues with Jen. She's sort of like, she loves her mom, but her mom makes her crazy and kind of embarrassed her. But then she kind of feels bad that she gets embarrassed, but then she's still embarrassed, just like normal, thing a high school girl might kind of feel, or really any person, not just a girl. I mean, I times where, you're embarrassed by something, but you shouldn't be. And I mean, I just feel like that's normal. And kids are brutal. They really are. Like, they just will say all kinds of things. I remember some of the things still to this day that my middle school friends used to make fun of me for. They would do that, And I had friends in high school that were still the same way. In fact, there's a couple friends where I kind of stopped hanging out with them. Like, they were cool guys and everything, and they were cool people. But I kind of got sick of getting made fun of. They just loved to make fun of people, and it wasn't just me; it was just everyone. They, this group of friends, that's what they did for fun, is they would just constantly make fun of everyone. Like I said, it wasn't just me; it would be everyone in the group. But it's just sort of like, okay, this is old. I'm really old, over this. Kids are just brutal like that. I remember very vividly. There was I was substitute teaching in high school. I want to say it was 9th or 10th grade. And I remember this girl came late to class, right? And she's really pretty girl, whatever. She walked in, and as soon as this girl walked into class, this girl did nothing. She did not say anything bad to her classmates. She did not do anything. She just simply walked in and sat down. Okay, and some of the other girls around her literally looked her up and down, just looking for something they can make fun of this girl about. And there really wasn't. I mean, this girl was she was very pretty. There wasn't really a lot to really make fun of her, at least on visually. But they're staring at her okay, what can studying her okay, where is her weak spot? What can we make fun of her about? We don't really know her. But, it was almost like, I don't know if they were like jealous that she was like pretty or whatever, but it was just so crazy. And then they ended up like finding some random thing to like make fun of her about, that some about her like shoes really didn't like, when her shoes were like pretty normal standard footwear for a high school girl. It wasn't anything like that, but they just like found some random thing, or like some, her hair was not quite perfect, or, whatever. It was just so crazy. It was like, wow, they were literally studying, like trying to find something they can make, like degrade other people about. And there's just some kids that are like that, And I'm sure, unfortunately, that, that goes back to maybe like, how they're raised, or, like maybe their parents, do that with them, and are very like judgmental and treat them really badly and are always degrading them. It could be a whole lot of number of things, or maybe there's a bad kid, like maybe they're just like annoying and obnoxious, right? That can be a thing for sure too. But yeah, that's just definitely one of the things that's real in high school. Is that's just high school, middle school. Just people really they kind of feel better, or even in the book that, they want to kind of spread it. They had people making fun of them, so they look for someone, lower on the totem pole, so to speak, and look for someone else they can make fun of, the same way that they were often made fun of. It kind of ends up being like a cycle, unfortunately, with that. So that is a thing for sure. I want to mention one of the names on there. So one of the names in the book there, it said that Ronnie's teacher, he talked to his teacher about it. His teacher, Miss Kinnett, went ahead and took care of that. And she took care of like the whole situation. And that actually, Miss Kinnett, was a teacher I had when I was in elementary school. And she actually married, and she has like a different name now. But when I had her, she was Miss Kinnett, and she was absolutely amazingly influential in my life. She kind of opened my eyes. Honestly, it's probably teachers like her. She was kind of the first one. I had other ones later, but she was sort of the first teacher I ever had that was like really fun. She was like a younger teacher, and she just kind of like, I don't know, she was just like fun. She would like try to like make learning as like fun as possible, and she would like joke around with everyone and stuff, and it was just such a different, like, wow, teaching can be like that. Up in that time, I always had like really old school like teachers that were very like, traditional. They weren't like bad teachers or anything, but they're just very traditional, maybe a little bit on the stern side, or maybe stern with me because I was like hyperactive and crazy and would get in trouble. And I still got in trouble in Miss Kinnett's class too. But she was just really influential in my life. But like, wow, teachers can be like this. They can be like fun and interesting. They don't have to be so like rigid, and so kind of like stern and stuff. And it really was an eye-opening. And actually, I want to say that, like I said, that was really influential in my life, because I'm probably that kind of teacher as well, where I'm kind of like the same person everywhere, and definitely, like, when I'm a teacher, I'm not any different. I kind of like joke around with the kids, and like, I have to maybe change my jokes a little bit sometimes, because sometimes, they don't understand some of the things I would joke about. But yeah, I just joke around and kind of have a good time and try to make learning as fun as possible, and sort of tease kids like in a very lighthearted way, and they know that I love them, and I don't mind if they tease me back in return. It really ends up being a fun thing, and I've actually had the same experience as a teacher as both a student, that when you're in an environment like that where you just really are enjoying yourself, it kind of opens you up for learning a lot more, right? Like, I'm ready to learn because I'm enjoying my life. If I am really not enjoying class, it's like harder to learn, right? So that's been a big influence in my life for sure. So shout out to Miss Kinnett for being a wonderful teacher and showing me what teaching can be like and educating, and we'll go from there. So the last thing that you will kind of see in the chapter, and we'll kind of end this episode with this, is that Jen's sort of like, man, I wanted to go out with Morgan, but not only is she kind of like hanging out with somebody else, which is fine. I don't think Jen's like upset that she's hanging out with someone else, but then at the same time really just wanted to hang out as well. And then just being that like awkward situation where she wanted someone to invite her to do something to come to the game, and then, like you said, like Morgan, like oftentimes paid for Jen for things, but did not offer to do it this time. So, Jen just felt like awkward, like, I don't know, I can't like ask her, to do this. So she kind of felt in that weird situation and then just kind of being like really bored and lonely. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where, I think probably most people have, where their like plans kind of fell through. Like you had these plans, I'm going to do this, it's going to be so fun. And then just nothing came of it. Like the people canceled or whatever. And you're kind of like down, like, man, I was so excited, looking forward to this like event and this time we spent with people, and then it, like, they canceled or it didn't work out or whatever, and then you just kind of start to feel down a little bit. So this kind of happens with Jen, and we'll kind of see how that goes from here with that. So, all right, well, and with that, we are going to be ending the episode. And the next episode, we actually are going to, no, not like I said, we're not quite to the auditions. That's actually 2 episodes from now. It's chapter 8. Chapter 7 is actually meeting the new youth minister. Okay, so we talked about how there's going to be a youth pastor at church, a new one, and Jen was like, what the crap, I have to go to church to hang out with these teens, some weird pastor guy, it's going to suck, I hate my life, and I don't know. Anyway, so we'll have to see how that goes and everything, and we will see you next time. So thank you for listening to A Peace and Podcast.